I'm Martin Caldwell. I'm 59 years old. I used to embezzle hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now I trade a can of tuna for a bar of soap. Let me tell you what happened. To understand how I got here, you have to understand where I started. It was 2010. I was divorced. I had 3 kids I barely saw, trying to send what little support I could from an accounting clerk's salary. I had some college, but I was stuck. My 2 sisters had their own lives. My parents were gone. I was in this cramped office in Newark, processing invoices for sums that felt like a fantasy. My own paycheck was a joke. Every number I touched was just a reminder of everything I didn't have. You see, that feeling of lack, it started to whisper to me. It suggested a way out. It began small. A vendor overpayment I rerouted. Just temporarily, I told myself. It wasn't stealing, it was creative problem solving. My kids needed things. The math on paper was wrong, but in my head it felt like I was finally balancing the scales. It felt like a puzzle only I could solve, not a crime. And when no one noticed, the puzzle got bigger. The temporary fix became a permanent system. I remember the day I authorized a big transfer to a shell account I'd set up. My boss, a man who never once asked about my family, walked by and clapped me on the shoulder. Good man, Caldwell. Reliable. The irony was so thick I could taste it. I felt brilliant, invisible. The money in that fake account was just a number on a screen, but it felt like a score. My score. I started spending that score, trying to buy back the pieces of my life I'd lost. My youngest son's birthday came around. I showed up with this incredible, expensive bike. His face lit up, pure joy. It made my chest hurt. But my ex-wife, she looked at the bike, then she looked at me. She didn't say a word. Her eyes weren't angry. They were just deeply, sadly knowing. She knew my real salary. She knew the math didn't add up. That silent look was a colder shock than any alarm. It haunted me. But I was in too deep by then. The machine was running. I told myself I could stop any time. I couldn't. It was a Tuesday. The hum of the office just died. I looked up and there they were, 2 FBI agents. They didn't have to say my name. Everyone knew. That walk out of the building past my coworkers, it was like drowning in silence. The number in my ledger vanished in that instant. It was never real. The courtroom, the sentence, 20 years for wire fraud and embezzlement. It was a blur. The reality didn't hit until the gates closed behind me in 2011. My first week inside, they take everything. Your clothes, your watch, your wallet. You become a number. I had nothing. No identity. I was shaking trying to fill out a commissary form. I had a small credit, but no idea what any of it meant. I was utterly lost. That's when an older inmate, a lifer, saw me. He didn't want my story. He pointed at my slip. You got tuna on there? I nodded. I got soap, he said. You need soap. I like tuna. We trade. That was it. No hidden fees, no lies, no schemes. A simple, tangible trade based on mutual need. I handed over the tuna, he gave me the soap. It was the first honest transaction I'd been part of in years. It shattered me. In that moment, I began to understand what I'd truly lost. 14 years. I served 14 of my 20. My kids grew up without me. My parents passed while I was inside. My sisters wrote, but visits were hard. I thought about that trade every single day. I learned that inside the real economy runs on tuna, stamps, coffee, real things. Trust is your only currency. And I'd traded all my trust for a phantom number. Now I had to rebuild it, one honest exchange at a time. When I walked out those gates a few months ago, in 2025, the world was new and strange. I had $75 and a bus ticket back to Newark. Walking into a store now is overwhelming. The prices, the choices. But I look at a can of tuna and I don't just see food. I see a week of trust built. I see a bar of soap. Real value isn't in what you can take, but in what you can honestly trade with another person. Money's just a tool, and I obsessed over it as a scorecard for my worth. That obsession cost me everything I thought I was buying. So here's what I understand now. Real wealth isn't a number in an account. It's what you can hold in your hand or hold in your heart. A skill, a moment of peace, a person who trusts you. I traded my freedom, my family, for a number that disappeared. Now I trade tuna for soap, and I'm richer than I ever was, which is why I'm telling you this. You still have time. Look at what you're trading your time and your integrity for right now. Is it just a number getting bigger on a screen, or is it something real? Don't wait for the world to force you to learn the value of a simple thing. Choose what you value now. Build your real economy. Don't make my mistakes. You see, after that first trade, nothing was the same. I started paying attention. Inside, you learn to read people, not bank statements. That lifer, he never told me his name, didn't matter. He taught me the rules. You only get one reputation in there. If you're known as someone who keeps their word on a trade, you're solid. If you're known as someone who cheats on a debt of a soup or a stamp, you're done. It's that simple. My whole outside life, I'd been cheating the biggest debt of all, and I thought I was smart. I remember one winter, maybe my third year in. It was bitter cold in the block. I had an extra thermo shirt from a care package my sister Carol had sent. A guy named Ray, he was in for something violent, a big, quiet man. He had a bad cough. He was shivering. He had a book of stamps. Now stamps are like gold. You can buy anything with them. He offered me 10 stamps for the shirt. That was a huge overpayment. A shirt was worth maybe 2 stamps, 3 at most. He was desperate. The old Martin, the accountant, would have taken the 10 stamps in a heartbeat. That was the good deal. But I'd learned. I took the shirt and I handed it to him. I said, 2 stamps, when you can. He just looked at me, then nodded. He paid me the 2 stamps a week later. After that, Ray watched my back. Not because he owed me, but because we had a deal. That trust was warmer than any shirt. That's what I lost. That's what I was really stealing when I was moving those numbers around. I was stealing trust from my company, sure, but mostly from my family. My ex-wife's name was Linda. I haven't said that yet. Linda. She had that look because she didn't trust the story anymore. And she was right. My kids, when I got arrested, it wasn't just that their dad was a criminal. It was that every gift, every nice thing from the last 2 years was a lie. I bought that bike with stolen trust. You can't get that back. I got one visit from my youngest, Michael, the one with the bike. He was 16. This was maybe 2015. He sat across from me, all arms and legs, not looking at me. He said, "Why'd you do it, Dad? We didn't need that stuff." What could I say? I told him I was stupid. I told him I got lost. He just shook his head and said, "Mom cries sometimes. She thinks it's her fault for not seeing it sooner." That broke me more than the sentence. I had turned the person I once loved into a detective, blaming herself for my crime. The years grind on you. You mark them by the trades, by the small economies. I learned to crochet. Can you believe that? An old-timer taught me. I'd make hats and trade them for coffee or writing paper, creating something with my own hands that someone else wanted. It gave me a feeling I never got from a successful wire transfer. That feeling was real. It existed outside of me. The money was just a ghost I was chasing. When my release date finally came, I was scared. More scared than when I went in. Inside, I understood the economy. Outside, the prices on the bus ride back to Newark. A coffee for $5? It felt insane. My $75 felt like nothing. But then I touched the crochet hook in my pocket, the one they let me keep. I had a skill. That was my real currency. I found a room in a boarding house in the South Ward, not far from where I grew up. The neighborhood changed, but the feeling was the same. People just trying to get by. I got a job, if you can call it that, helping a guy at a bodega with his inventory. He pays me in cash and lets me take home dented cans. It's honest. One day, the soap in the shared bathroom was gone. The guy across the hall, he's younger, down on his luck too. I had an extra can of tuna from the bodega. I knocked on his door. I said, "I got tuna. You got soap?" He looked confused, then he laughed. He had a bar. We traded. It happened again. Right back where I started. But this time it wasn't a lesson from a lifer. It was just life. My life. The real one. It happened again. Right back where I started. But this time it wasn't a lesson from a lifer. It was just life. My life. The real one. And for a while, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe I could just live quietly, trade my tuna, do my job, and that would be enough. But you don't get off that easy. The past doesn't just sit there. It waits for you to get comfortable, and then it walks right up to you in the supermarket aisle. It was last month. I was in the ShopRite, looking at the soap, trying to decide between the plain bar and the one that said Ocean Breeze, which cost 30 cents more. And then I heard a voice, a woman's voice. Marty? I knew that voice. I hadn't heard it in 15 years, not since the courtroom. I turned around, and there was Linda, my ex-wife. She looked older, of course, we both did, but she looked settled. She had a cart with some groceries in it, just normal stuff, milk, bread, a bunch of bananas, a life. We just stood there for a second. The fluorescent lights hummed. It was the same sound as the office all those years ago. My mouth was dry. Linda, I said. Hi. I heard you were out, she said. Her voice was quiet, not angry, not anything really, just a statement. Carol told me. I nodded. My sister, Carol. Still the bridge even now. Yeah, a few months now. There was another silence. It was awful. I looked at her cart. I looked at my hand holding the bar of plain soap. I felt that old feeling, that desperate need to explain, to justify, to make the math add up. But there was no math anymore, just this. How are the kids? I finally asked. It was the only thing I could think to say. They're adults, Marty, she said, and her voice softened just a little. Michael's 29. He's an electrician, married, has a little girl. She paused. Your granddaughter, Emma. I felt the air leave my lungs, just whooshed right out. A granddaughter. I had a granddaughter I didn't know. I'd missed my son becoming a father. I stood there in the soap aisle, and I think my legs actually wobbled. I put a hand on the shelf to steady myself. Oh, I said. It was a stupid sound, a tiny, broken word. He's a good man, Linda said, and she was looking at me now, really looking. Not with that old, sad knowing, with something worse, with pity. He works hard, he's honest, he's nothing like... She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Nothing like you. I nodded again, like a machine. That's good, I'm glad. Are you? She asked. It wasn't mean. It was a real question. Are you glad, Marty? Or are you just sorry? That was the question, wasn't it? The one I'd been asking myself every day for 14 years. I looked down at the soap in my hand, the plain, cheap bar. I thought about the tuna in my basket. I thought about the trade with the lifer. I thought about Ray and the thermal shirt. All my little lessons in value. Both, I said, and my voice cracked. I am both, every minute of every day. She studied my face for a long time. Then she sighed, a deep, tired sigh that seemed to come from the very bottom of her. I believed you, you know, at first, when you started bringing home more money. I thought you'd gotten a promotion. I thought you were finally getting it together for us. She shook her head slowly. That bike, God, that bike. I wanted to be happy. Michael was so happy. But I just felt sick because I knew, some part of me knew it was all wrong. I know, I whispered. Do you? She said. What do you know, Marty? What did you actually learn in there? I had to tell her. I had to make her understand it wasn't for nothing. I learned that a can of tuna is worth a bar of soap, I said. It sounded insane, saying it out loud in a ShopRite, but it was the truest thing I knew. I learned that trust is the only thing that matters. I learned that I traded everything real for a ghost. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I cried for a year after they took you. Not because I missed you. We were already over. I cried because of what you did to them, to our children. You made them ashamed of their own name. You made every good memory from those last years a lie. That's what you stole, Marty. You didn't steal money. You stole their childhood. You stole my peace. You stole our story and made it into a crime report. Her words didn't hit me like a wave. They were sharper than that. They were like a surgeon's knife, precise and cold, cutting right to the bone of what I'd done. She wasn't yelling. She was just telling me the inventory of the loss. And it was so much worse than I'd ever let myself imagine. I had nothing to say. No defense. No clever puzzle to solve. I just stood there, holding my soap, being cut open by the truth. I have to go, she said. She started to push her cart away, then stopped. She looked back at me. Michael might be willing to see you someday, if you're really different. But you can't show up with a bike, Marty. You have to show up with nothing, just you. The you that understands the price of things now. Then she turned and walked away. I watched her go, past the detergents, around the corner. Gone. I stood there for I don't know how long. People pushed their carts around me. I didn't move. I thought about my granddaughter, Emma, a name I didn't know until 5 minutes ago. I thought about Michael, fixing wires in people's houses, being reliable, being honest. I thought about Linda buying bananas, and I finally understood the full cost. It wasn't the 14 years, that was just the time. The real cost was the life that went on without me. The birthdays, the graduations, the first steps of a child I'd never meet. The quiet evenings, the simple, honest worry about bills and groceries. The ordinary, precious trust of a family. I had liquidated all of it. I'd sold it off for a number, and the number was gone. I put the soap in my basket. I didn't cry there in the store. The crying came later, in my room at the boarding house. I sat on the edge of my bed and I cried for all of it. For Linda's peace, for my children's shame, for my own stupidity. I cried until I was empty. And when I was done, I looked around the room, at the crochet hook on the dresser, at the small stack of dented cans from the bodega, at the bar of plain soap. This was what I had. This was my real economy. It was a devastatingly small ledger. But for the first time, every single thing in it was honestly mine. This was my real economy. It was a devastatingly small ledger, but for the first time, every single thing in it was honestly mine. Here's what I learned sitting on that bed, looking at that soap. I was wrong about everything. I thought money was the score. I thought the number in the account was proof I mattered, that I was providing, that I was a success. But that number was a ghost. It wasn't real wealth. Real wealth is what you can't steal. It's the trust in your son's eyes when he looks at you. It's the peace in your ex-wife's face when she sleeps at night, knowing the bills are paid with honest work. It's the ordinary, boring safety of a family that isn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I liquidated all of that. I traded it for a phantom, and the phantom vanished the moment the handcuffs clicked. That trade in the cell block, the tuna for the soap, that was my first lesson in the real economy. It's an economy that runs on simple things. Need for need. Word for word. Inside and out here, that's all there is. When I was moving those numbers, I wasn't creating value. I was just moving trust from their column to mine. And eventually, the ledger always balances. You always pay. I paid with 14 years, but more than that, I paid with the life that happened without me. I paid with my granddaughter's first steps. I paid with Linda's peace. I paid with my children's uncomplicated pride in their father. That's the interest on stolen trust. It compounds forever. So here is my direct advice to you, especially if you're sitting at a desk right now, looking at numbers that aren't yours, feeling that whisper of lack. Look at what you're actually trading, your time, your attention, your integrity. What are you getting for it? Is it just a number on a screen getting bigger? A nicer car that you'll worry about scratching? A bike you can't explain? Or is it something real? A quiet dinner where no one is hiding anything? A friend who knows your worst and still shows up? The ability to look at yourself in the mirror without a story. If you can't hold it in your hand or hold it in your heart without shame, it's not real. It's a ghost. And you will end up chasing it until you have nothing left to trade but a can of tuna. You still have time. I'm 59. I have to build a life from dented cans and a bar of soap. You likely have more than that. Don't wait for the world to force the lesson on you. Don't wait for the knock on the door or the silent look across a birthday party. Choose your currency now. Choose to build your wealth in things that can't be seized. Build it in trust. Build it in small, honest trades. Build it in showing up with nothing to offer but yourself and meaning it. This is why I'm telling this story here. This channel is full of people who learn things the hard way, so maybe you don't have to. If this story, my story, struck a chord with you, if you've ever felt that whisper, or you know someone who's listening to it, then hit that like button. It lets me know this was worth saying. Subscribe and turn on notifications. There are other stories here, other lessons paid for in lost time, and they might help you see something clearer. Leave a comment down below. Tell me, what's your can of tuna right now? What's the simple, honest thing you're trading for? Or what's the phantom number you might be chasing? I read them. After 14 years of silence, I value the exchange. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a friend, a coworker, a family member who's working too hard for things that don't matter. Sometimes the truth needs a messenger, and today, that's me. And if you have your own story, a lesson you learned through loss, a mistake that cost you something real, there's a form in the description. Tell it. Your voice might be the one that stops someone from making their own terrible trade. Your story could be the warning they need. A book that helped me start to put this into words long after the trade is The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. It's in the description. It's not about getting rich. It's about understanding what you already have. Don't make my mistakes. Don't confuse the score with the game. The real wealth was never in the account. It was in the hand that wasn't waiting to be cuffed. It was in the eyes that looked at you with trust, not pity. Build that. Trade for that. Everything else is just a can of tuna waiting to be exchanged for what you truly need.